Federal Executive Council approves automation of Nigeria Customs Service.
PPMC announces new ex-depot pump price of petrol.
Nigerian and Ghanaian speakers of parliament meet over disputes involving Nigerian traders in Ghana.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on Nigerian students abroad, victims of hostility.
It is with nostalgia that many recall the years gone by when education obtained in Nigeria was the pride of many Nigerian parents.
Yes, of course. Prior to the country's independence, Nigerian students with university education in countries like the UK would return to the country after their study. But this changed with time, especially in the 1980s after the oil boom.
Now, well, in years past, very few countries, as it were, could ignore Nigerian degrees. Indeed, Nigerian degrees had global ranking. And the Ministry of Education, as well as employers of labor, were quick to reject degrees from universities with low academic rankings. But today, the story is quite different. It is now, as it were, a status symbol to have a child or ward attending school outside the country.
Yeah, you recall those days that you mentioned a short while ago, and that's when, if you can gain admission in the foundation universities in Nigeria, like UI, UNN, University of Lagos, you know, and when you gain admission into those universities, usually people throw parties, you know, celebrating.
That's right. No question about it. And in some cases, it was necessarily the experience that some persons who indeed couldn't pass what was then the concessional entrance examinations that then later became JAMB or UTME today.
The ones that travel abroad.
Some of them, of course,
to get
such education.
All right, now recent data from the United States Education Institute indicates that in the past academic year, Nigerian students spent $14 million US on their studies, surpassing the figure in France, Germany, and the UK, of course, Nigeria as well.
Well, there's a point of curiosity these days, and that has to do with the choice and location of institutions in which Nigerian students now seek admission. Now, we hear of Nigerian students pursuing academic degrees in schools with little or no infrastructure or capacity to impart the requisite knowledge in many fields of study.
Some have cited the state of the country's education system as the reason for these decisions, with little or no regard for stories on unexplained deaths of Nigerian students in these countries.
Well, the media continue to carry advertisements of secondary and tertiary institutions outside the country and their touted accompanied benefits, giving many parents and guardians, as it were, some comfort in the ability of the management of those schools to take care of their wards and children.
And these days you have professional agents, you know, who are directly involved in getting admission for Nigerian students across the globe.
They even organize fairs.
Exactly.
Organize fairs. And of course, it's once again a status symbol for you to be seen around those fair locations.
Now, a few years ago, the media began filing stories on the exploitation, racist behavior, and deaths of Nigerian students in different countries, and the sad struggle by parents for justice and closure.
Well, the deaths which have occurred in Dubai, Malaysia, and most recently in Cyprus, to mention a few, have now, of course, necessitated an outright ban on academic pursuit by Nigerian students in northern Cyprus. Now, it also raises questions on why Nigerians send their children abroad for education, despite the dangers that some of these students face, and of course what informs the choice of the schools to which these students are sent.
I think Northern Cyprus is in Turkey.
Yes,
it's in Turkey. It's in northern province in Turkey. Oh yeah. Okay, Kingsley, many questions are begging for answers in this matter, and these inform the focus of our conversation on hostilities before Nigerian students studying abroad. Now, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're broadcasting, as always, from our headquarters studios in Abuja. In the course of the program, we have our complimentary segments, including newspaper review. Right now, let's join Abdul Malik Adio with the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Abdul Malik.
Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Kirian. It's good to have you join us on the morning news. Now, the Federal Executive Council has ratified now President Muhammadu Buhari's anticipatory approval of the contract for Nigerian Customs Service modernization. The private project partnership project is expected to go up $3.1 billion, involves complete automation of the service for enhanced revenue generation and economic growth. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, announced this while briefing journalists after the meeting of the Federal Executive Council, said, however, that the ambitious project will be fully executed at no cost to the federal government.
Of revenue. And the consortia that are providing these investments are going to be paid over time according to a schedule that is negotiated for their investments, including their profit and cost of funds.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed deep concern over the heavy flooding that destroyed farmlands, farm produce, houses and other personal belongings in part of Kebbi State. The president described the incident as a setback to the nation's effort at boosting local rice production as part of measures to stop food importation. He noted that Kebbi State is the focal point of the federal government's policy to produce rice locally, and as part of government's commitment to agricultural revival, which suffered relative neglect in the past. President Muhammadu Buhari noted that the bad news couldn't have come at a worse time for farmers, and other Nigerians are looking forward to a bumper harvest this year in order to reduce the current astronomical rise in the cost of food items in the market, while sympathizing with the bereaved families and farmers affected by the floods. The president promised to work closely with Kebbi State government to bring relief to the victims. And Speaker of Nigerian's House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, says he's fully hopeful that the Nigeria and Ghana would arrive at mutual acceptable resolutions on the trade dispute that erupted some weeks back. The speaker, who led a delegation of lawmakers from the House of Representatives, said this when they were received by the Speaker of the Ghanaian Parliament as they arrived Accra, the capital of Ghana, on a legislative diplomatic mission. Gbajabiamila said the two-day visit to Ghana was meant to explore legislative diplomacy towards resolving the issues affecting both countries. Welcoming the Nigerian delegation, the Speaker of the Ghanaian Parliament, who expressed confidence in an amicable resolution, hoped the next 2 days will bring a beautiful reunion to the two nations. The delegation, while at the Nigerian High Commission in Ghana, were informed by the leader of the Nigerian Union of Traders in Ghana, Chief Chukwemeka Naji, that Nigerian traders have their trade registered with appropriate agencies, pay their taxes as at when due, and yet have since 2007 been allegedly subjected to harsh treatment by the authorities. He appealed to the Speaker to follow up on the legislative diplomatic intervention in order to ensure the resolutions arrived at are implemented by the Ghanaian authorities. Now, the federal government has promised to sustain effort at making adjustment to new lifestyles and becoming more sensitive to security underpinnings as experts continue to find vaccines and possible cure for COVID-19. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this in his remark to the virtual meeting at Aqaba process in Ashimeti Kingdom of Jordan. He said Nigerian developed a robust framework led by Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 could contain and oversee the country's multi-sectorial intergovernmental effort at containing the spread and mitigating the impact of COVID-19 pandemic.
19.
Now, the Pipeline Product and Marketing Company, PPMC, has announced an increase of ex-depot price of petrol to 151.56 per litre. This was confirmed in a statement signed by D.O. Abalaka of the PPMC, a subsidiary of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. The statement informs customers of the new product adjustment, which takes effect from September 2nd, 2020. It will be recalled that following the full deregulation of the petroleum downstream subsector, there is a provision for the establishment of a monthly price band. Now, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 216 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. In the latest daily figures, Plateau State has 59 cases, Rivers 27, Abia 22, while Lagos has 20 cases of the virus. Other states include Oyo 18, now Enugu with 17. Kaduna and FCT have 11 cases each. Ogun has 10, Ebonyi, Osun and Ekiti have 4 cases each, while Delta and Edo have 3 cases. Akwa Ibom has 2, while Bauchi recorded 1 case. There are now 54,463 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, and 42,439 persons have been discharged, while 1,027 persons have died from the virus. And that's the morning news. Good Morning Nigeria continues after the break.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Now you're on to Good Morning Nigeria. Investment experts crave for an improvement in the manufacturing sector as the federal government continues to stabilize the economy. Let's now join Kunle Adeye for details.
A busy economy is an economy that accommodates every sector, especially manufacturing. This aspect of the economy has been identified as one that can adequately bridge gaps in an ailing economy and lead to its growth. This is that it stimulates services which have multiplier effects. As the federal government develops different programs and policies like the Economic Sustainability Plan, an investment promotion expert Ogbona Okuku has urged federal government and subnational governments to give priority to manufacturing.
When it comes to manufacturing, there are 5 key things you must look at, which is
your workforce? Do you have a properly trained workforce towards industrialization? So that means a lot of money has to go into education.
And latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that Nigeria's total foreign trade comprising import and export dropped by 27.46% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2020, when compared to 8.61 trillion naira recorded in the corresponding quarter of 2019. It also decreased by 27.3% from 8.59 trillion naira recorded in the first quarter of 2020. Total import for the period stood at 4.02 trillion naira, while total export was 2.22 trillion naira, indicating a negative trade balance of 1.8 trillion naira. Let's now see how tradings went on Wednesday, 2nd of September 2020, on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Many thanks, Kunle, there for the business package. Newspaper review is next.
Now you're welcome to newspaper review. Let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper for this morning. We have some trending stories there below the nameplate. We have petrol price rises above 151 naira. Nigerians react. That's on page 18. Water bill not meant to give president absolute control. That's according to Rep. Dogoa. Now, robbers raid MKO Abiola's house, torture family. That's on page 34. Now, food security threatens as flood destroy farms. Rice, maize, sorghum, others affected. It's a major setback, according to Buhari. Farmers confused over loans. Experts urge government to support dry season farming. All right, the photo story is actually the flooding. You could see the extent of damage of flood in what should be a farm, and of course on the left-hand side, which should be on your right, you see a farmland. Really, looks like a rice farm that's been, almost buried by the floods. That's not a good news. Now, below that, we have a FEC okays $3.1 billion for customs automation, 13 billion for airports. That's on page 4. Oba of Benin urges Obaseki Ize Iyamu to emulate Jonathan. That's on page 26. Now, terrorists have taken radicalization online. That's Buhari. Terrorists have taken radicalization to online. Kingsley.
All right, so we'll also take a look at the Nation newspaper. Above the nameplate, Oshibajo and Ganduje meet on banditry and education. Details on page 4. Electricity consumers seek tariff reversal. Timing not appropriate. That's the writer to that headline. Details on page 27. And on pages 29 and 5, you have Yobe votes 9.2 billion naira for capital projects. Above Benin to politicians, rein in your thugs. And Edo and Ondo 2020, you have a number of headlines there indicating the governorship elections that are due in a matter of weeks. APC and PDP disagree on debate. APC and Obaseki's wife trade blame. Police pledge security ahead of election. Okay, hands security to Akeredolu, this is in Ondo, and lawyer gives INEC ultimatum on ZLP candidate. $22.7 billion approved loans still intact, says DMO. That's the Debt Management Office. PPMC fixes petrol price, that is ex-depot price for petrol at 151 naira 56 kobo. With the rider, pump price may hit 162 naira. Lead story, Buhari, that's the kicker, corrupt middlemen behind rising food prices. Flood destroys 450,000 hectares of Kebbi rice farm. How will prevent food security, food scarcity rather, by president. And Ghana speaker raises hope of truce with Nigeria, as Bajabia Miller and Okwaye meet. And the photograph there on the front page shows the Emir of Kano and his host, former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, when the Emir visited General Abdulsalami in Mina, Niger State yesterday. FEC approves 26.06 billion naira contracts for works and aviation. Details can be found on page 6. Here.
Yeah.
Well, right. The story on the threat to the nation's food security,
I think it's a big one for this morning.
Yeah, it's a big one, but that raises a number of questions. We know that the floods this year will have this kind of impact that it's having now. Yes. For several months now, the NIMET as well as NISA, which is the Hydrological Services Agency, have issued the warnings. But the devastation is only now just beginning to unfold, at least in Kebbi and some other states in the northwest. It's still coming. It's still coming to the north central states and, of course, going further down to the delta states as well as parts of the southeast. But I would imagine when we say that food security is threatened as floods have destroyed farmlands, one season you have this kind of devastating impact and suddenly our food security is threatened. What happened to our strategic reserves?
Yeah, so it doesn't appear as if we don't have strategic reserves, but you know, you have to go there when there is an urgent need, there's a dire need for that.
That's right.
But for now, we are having a devastation of floods, and it's going to actually threaten food security against the next year, because I'm not sure that we have enough food reserve that can cater for the nation in the case of serious devastation of farmlands, as we're witnessing at the moment. And now the prediction is quite right, because it says mid-August, September is going to be on a very high level, and as you said, it's moving down to the southern part of the country. And you know, of course, that it is the north that actually provides a greater percentage of the food that that grows in this country. So if Kebbi,
the grains
exactly, and Kebbi, for instance, is noted for rice production, and I mean, if you can get Kebbi as he did, then that is a problem. But what I'm even talking about, asking about now, is why is it that there was no mitigation, no measures to mitigate the flood, since of course has been rightly predicted that it was going to come? Or does it mean that there are no facilities or other infrastructure required to be able to mitigate the flood? Because when you're on a flood plain, you know exactly where it's going to come from, right? And when they say, look, that from a particular period of time to the other period of time that this is going to occur, why not make frantic efforts to see how you can mitigate the effect of the flood? So over the years.
Yeah, very important point, Kirian, and that mitigation, of course, could arise partly through the use of dams. To say you can channel some of the waters to the dams, but unfortunately it turns out that a number of the dams are silted, and there has been no sufficient desiccation of the dams over the years, as we have heard from guests on Good Morning Nigeria, over time. Otherwise, you could then channel the waters coming from upstream River Niger to some of those dams. But once you have an occurrence like this, where the dams themselves are either full to capacity or the waters are just taking their natural course, then you have the kind of devastating consequences such as Kebbi is experiencing. But aside from what we are seeing now during the rainy season, Kirian, if we know that this is already going to create some crisis in terms of harvest and returns to farmers, the next best thing would be to say, okay, how then do you focus aggressively on dry season farming? Because the rains will stop. So how then do you focus on dry season farming, which is coming after the rains, so that whatever is lost now can be recovered, at least to some extent?
Yes, the only setback, with dry season farming is the capacity, to have the facilities to be able to water the grains, when they are planted during the dry season. Irrigation system in Nigeria is yet to get to the level where all the states can practice dry season farming. But I also remember that Kebbi is also good when it comes to dry season farming. The government of Kebbi has provided the facilities and infrastructure to enable the state to engage very seriously in dry season farming. And if other states can emulate that,
Katsina, you have a number of dams in Katsina, out of Kaduna, and then elsewhere, I think Sokoto as well.
Yeah. So if other states can really, key into that, then of course many of the states in this country should have the capacity to engage in dry season farming, and that will of course make us to produce all year round, right? Not wet season farming alone that many Nigerian farmers are embarking upon. So the issue here is the facility, to be able to engage in that. But in some areas, where perhaps you may not have the capacity to have the normal irrigation system, you can also apply, the kind of irrigation that is the northern Israelis apply. It's called a drip irrigation. Right? I saw that in Israel. Drip irrigation. Which they use. That means you have to water the plant only. Don't water the ground. Water the plant. And if you water the plant grows. You don't have to spread the entire water all over the place. So it conserves water, and it enables you now to get to more plants.
The advantage that you have in the northwest, for instance, it's you have a number of dams. In that part of the country, as you have in some other locations anyway. In some cases, they use tubular irrigation, where it's like sinking a temporary borehole, for where you now use a pumping machine to be watering the fields during the dry season. I've also seen that in Agungu, and it's very interesting. Kebbi State, I think about 2/3 of the local government areas cultivate rice in Kebbi.
Exactly.
So that's a huge impact.
And they're highly irrigated.
Yes,
they're highly
right.
irrigated. Yeah.
That's right. So okay, there's also the story about PPMC and the new pump price of petrol, ex-depot price now over 151 naira, which brings again the question, Kirian. The metrics for fixing this price relates to the so-called landing cost. This is part of imported inflation. This is part of what we see with exported jobs. All of this is happening because our refineries are not working. 4 refineries that we have in the country are not working. And unless and until a decision is taken on those refineries, we are likely to be at the mercy of price fluctuations on the international market, especially now as subsidy has been removed, even though there were some reports a couple of days ago about some amount that has been said to have been spent on under recovery, which is a synonym for subsidy. But fix the 4 refineries and we won't be telling this kind of story.
It has become a matter that people like me would think that may never be properly taken care of. As a matter of fact, for so many decades now, we've been importing PPMC, and we have these refineries. Some say there's no need to get back to them, and they're obsolete and what have you. But of course, we have refineries that are more than 6 years old across the globe that are still functioning. But the present administration, made some frantic efforts towards that. But what surprises many is the fact that up to date, we cannot guarantee that any of them can produce to capacity, to its full capacity. Some are less than 50% in the capacity in terms of production. So that's really worrying. And until we're able to put these refineries, or rather also perhaps develop modular refineries, then the story may never change. And it's so abnormal, that you have to import what you produce, right?
Unfortunately. I will recall that President Muhammadu Buhari attended at least 2 very important summits. Of course, not this year, during the course of the corona pandemic. One was in Sochi, in Russia. And part of the agreement then was to say, look, how the Russians could play a role in some of our infrastructure, including refineries. Not much appears to have come out of that. He was also in Saudi Arabia, and part of the agreement was that Aramco, which is the Saudi National Oil Corporation, would help with our refineries. Again, not much has come out of that. Some years ago, it was indicated that by the first quarter of 2020, Nigeria's 4 refineries will be working. Nothing, again, appears to have come out of that promise. Coronavirus didn't take a hit on our country until sometime in March, where we started having lockdowns. So exactly what has been happening with the refineries. We're all relying, everybody's saying, oh, Dangote refinery, Dangote refinery. Dangote is a private entrepreneur.
Exactly, and Dangote will not determine how he's going to, manage his business. He may focus on, other countries across the globe, because he's a businessman.
That's right. And if you recall, the tailpiece of President Obasanjo's tenure in 2007, there was some arrangement to transfer government interest in one of the Port Harcourt refineries to Dangote. And the Nigerian elite said, oh, no, this is an outright sale of transfer of national patrimony to a private individual. Let him go and set up his own. Now he's trying to set up his own.
Exactly.
In the meantime, our own refineries...
Exactly, and we're beginning to rely or wait and rely on his own, that is still under construction. Right,
I think that's
what about the editorial?
Heartwarming that the Monoba Nedo Kwapolopolo has called in the politicians to rein in their thugs. There was a meeting yesterday at the palace, and with only 2 weeks to go for the elections, we do hope that peace will continue to reign. Edo has never witnessed this kind of lead-up to a governorship election.
Yes, in fact, Nigerians are praying for Edo State, particularly, because of the way the tension has been taken to the highest level, on both sides of the divide. The PDP and APC is like a war. Which shouldn't be. This is just an election. Somebody must win. All right, and that's how we conclude this morning's edition of Newspaper Review. And of course, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we are going to engage in the conversation that we have introduced to you, of course, at the incipient of this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria, looking at Nigerian students abroad and the hostile nature of some of the nations where Nigerian students, of course, are in school. So we are going to we're going to discuss that in full when we return from this break. Stay with us.
NTA College Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is currently admitting students for its ordinary diploma programs in television journalism, television production, and television engineering. Interested candidates are advised to obtain relevant information concerning eligibility at our website at www.ntatvc.edu.ng or marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. For further information, contact Assistant Director Marketing, NTA TV College Jos on 0803-314-4383 or the Academic Office of the College on 0806-980-9807. Announcer, Registrar.
Everyone has always been faced with a moral question between what is right and what is wrong. Yet not everyone is ready to do the right thing. This is where we come in. We are Jais Bank, committed to making a difference by doing the right thing even if we stand alone. A place where transparency is an attitude and trust is a culture. A place where profit is shared and losses borne together. At Jais Bank, we support you to shape a better tomorrow, a partnership to birth your dreams. Jais Bank, for a better life.
In these uncertain times, one thing's certain. We're in this together. So Clean Protect, the antibacterial detergent that removes 99.9% germs while it cleans. Because germ-free clean is the real clean that we all need. Do your best to protect your family. So Clean Protect.
Nigeria, the Network Service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, we'll set the tone for our conversation. Let's listen to this background now by our correspondent, Aisha Obali.
Incessant strikes by university unions in Nigeria, irregular academic calendar, and poor state of education, among others, have been cited as reasons why parents send their children to school abroad. This decision to send a child or ward to study abroad is not connected to cheaper or more affordable tuition or the fact that the students are treated fairly in the most countries. While many parents think that enrolling their children abroad is the solution or the best way to a seamless undergraduate or master's program, some have regretted the decision, with their words paying the ultimate price. Most of these countries have become hell for Nigerian students. Students who have survived the ordeal have horrifying stories to tell. Nigerian students have died in Malaysia, Dubai and Cyprus. Nigerian students abroad have also continued to experience ill treatment, including racism, exploitation, harassment, maiming and death by the local without justice. Observers insist government needs to address these human treatment and violations by demanding justice for these students. Recently, the Nigerian government has urged Nigerian students to avoid North Cyprus, which has become unsafe for students. Many Nigerians in most of these countries have continued to endure the harsh experience, communication also being one major challenge, which they must learn before embarking on any study. Today, some African countries are among the most dangerous destinations for educational pursuit, as Nigerian students have continued to undergo various forms of abuse, such as xenophobic attacks. Recall that in 2017, there were reports that South African policemen killed a 25-year-old Nigerian, Ibrahim Olaleko Badmus. Also among the cases is that of a Nigerian, Uju Njikoye from Imo State, who jumped from a 13-story building to avoid immigration arrest in Malaysia. How can these challenges be addressed? Must Nigerians go abroad to study? Is the Nigerian education system truly poor? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be discussing these issues shortly.
Now, thanks, Aisha Obali. And now joining us in the studio is the, well, of course, we've not had the person here. What we have now is Abdul Hamid Mohammed, a legal practitioner. We'd like to thank you for joining us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Okay, we also have Dr. Mukhtar Imam. He's of the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy at the Base University. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Now, we also have joining this conversation this morning, Mohammed Ahmed Bello. Mohammed Ahmed Bello is the brother of Ibrahim Bello, who unfortunately passed away in northern Cyprus some weeks ago. Mohammed Bello, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right. Also, part of this conversation, joining us via Zoom from California in the United States. It's a project management professional and a graduate of European University in northern Cyprus, where he was a student 20 years ago, Nazif Bena. Nazif Bena, we know that it's 8 hours behind us, so you're having the small hours there in California. A pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and also part of the conversation this morning, would like to welcome a familiar face. She's an alumna of the Nigerian Television Authority and Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Honorable Abike Dabire Erewa. Honorable Abike, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning. And happy birthday in arrears.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we're discussing a topic that unfortunately is not so pleasant, and that has to do with the ordeal of Nigerian students abroad who are victims sometimes of hostility. We also have another guest who is with us
in Bayelsa State.
That's right. Is joining us via Zoom. Is a human rights activist and one-time Chief Press Secretary to the Bayelsa State Governor. He is Fidelis Soriwe. Fidelis Soriwe, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's start this conversation with the Chief Executive of the Commission, who has just been introduced by Kinsley. Ma'am, you know, the topic for this morning is very sensitive, you know, because across the globe, the stories of Nigerian students being killed has been in the air for a very long time. But let's share your own view, because we know how you have a kind of network of information gathering across the globe, you know, via your commission. Can we just have an idea of how bad it is, you know, across the nation? That with respect to the issue of the ones that we know have been reported dead. Well, there are persons who may not have been reported as we have exactly.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, and good morning again. Yeah, it's not that Nigerian students are being killed just anywhere, but you know, this is happening because of a particular incident of a Nigerian killed in northern Cyprus, Ibrahim Khalil, and we had to step it up because northern Cyprus in particular, we've had quite a number of cases of Nigerian students being killed there. Nothing has happened. No investigation, no outcome, and mainly because northern Cyprus, nobody has diplomatic relationships with northern Cyprus except Turkey. We don't have a mission there, so we have to walk through our embassy in Ankara, Turkey. So with the death of Ibrahim Khalil, what the commission said was this has to be the tipping point. This just has to stop. One is we have to know what happened. So from way back, you know, quite a number of years now, at least maybe from 2012, 2013, we've been having incidents. Now, I said about 100 or even hundreds, but one of the students said, no, it's not up to 100, it's 18. And I'm saying about hundreds because a lot are unreported. This was reported because the justice knew what to do. So for a lot of people, you can't even get there, you can't even know what, you won't even know. You just, after months, just know that there's a body bag somewhere. So Northern Cyprus in particular is the point we're saying, number one, they come to Nigeria to recruit. And now, because there was a time we drove them away some years back, when they killed some guy in 2013, we were talking about it. Well, there was not much of social media then, but we're talking about it. And then, lo and behold, they were in Sheraton Rockview coming to recruit more students. So I was in Parliament then, and we went to meet them and said, you have to get out of here, and they did. But now they use Nigerians to recruit students. Now, the thing is, there's no visa. You don't need a visa because nobody has diplomatic relationship with Northern Cyprus. So you don't need a visa. And then you don't need to pass anything. Whatever, just come in, then they offer cheap fees, scholarships, and all that. So what we're saying now is that some of the students said, oh, what happens to our, there's nothing wrong with the certificates you receive. What we're saying is that it's dangerous. And we can't keep quiet and say it's not dangerous. It is dangerous to be going to such a country because since, even if it's 18 or 20 or 100, nothing, no investigation, no report. They just tell you, oh, they don't even tell you anything. They don't even tell you anything. So we raised the alarm and said, well, beware of going to a place like Northern Cyprus because there's a relationship with them. So I wouldn't say it's all over. I mean, that's alarming, but particularly worse in some areas.
But you know, we've had in the past, you know, in Malaysia and in Dubai, we also had...
And not particularly students, just Canada, generally speaking.
In Canada,
yes.
You know, in the US, in Ukraine as well. You know, these are places.
You see, there are some places we shouldn't really be going. And I'm saying, they'll tell me I'm not diplomatic, but this is not about diplomacy. This is about human lives. Diplomacy means speak with both sides of your mouth. Some places are dangerous. Northern Cyprus is dangerous. Because, okay, now, who do we talk to? We've been to the Turkish mission in Nigeria. They tell you they will investigate. But the good thing about this case, you know, in those years, there was no NITCOM. Now there's an organization set up specifically for this. Now, thanks to the Attorney General of the Federation, this case has been, is now with Interpol. So we're going to be following it up and...
I mean, you mentioned now that there's NITCOM, which is heartwarming because your scope of interaction involves students, traders, workers, Nigerian professionals, wherever they are around the globe. And my colleague Kieran was drawing attention to some other incidents involving Nigerian students in the past, or just perhaps young men who have unfortunately lost their lives. Aisha Falode, for instance, lost her son in Dubai. And the claim was that it was a suicide. I recall we had her on Good Morning Nigeria some years ago, along with her attorney, who is now Honorable Minister of State for Niger, Minister of State for Labor, that's Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Malaysia, you know, students get chased, and then of course sometimes next thing is a body bag. You mentioned something that there are some places that we shouldn't actually go to. So what do you know about, shall we say now loosely, dangerous locations where Nigerians are, in the name of seeking foreign education, find themselves?
That would be alarming. In fact, we'll be meeting with the NUC to sit with them, and there are some places that actually should be blacklisted. Even in West Africa, we've been to some West African countries where there was a particular country, the university was actually a porter cabin within a market. And guess who the students were? Nigerians. 90% of them were Nigerians. So, but that was some years back. Now we're sitting with NUC to at least draw more attention, because it's about ignorance. A lot of people will not go to some certain places. Like in Ukraine, one guy just found in a river, and we're on it. But what I'm saying now is that whatever the cases now, if we are specific, there are cases that we may not be able to go back to years ago in Northern Cyprus, for instance, but for Ibrahim Khalil, we're not stopping until we know what happened, until we get results. But the only problem is only Turkey we'll be talking to. So we'll continue that until they give us answers, and they keep warning Nigerians that it's not worth it on the long run if you're bringing back a body bag. So we have to be specific, but since with the establishment of NIDCOM about a year ago, as the cases come, we deal with them. So I might not be able to say this, but there are quite a few cases we're dealing with. We work particularly with the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, and we've achieved results. So what I'll just say is that the key thing is when something happens to your citizen, demand justice. For years we've been keeping quiet, but not anymore, as instructed by the president. So whenever anything happens to any Nigerian, there are some we know Nigerians are guilty. If you're guilty, you pay the price. For instance, I talked about Dubai. I'm sure you saw some videos circulating some time ago saying they were chasing them into the desert. That wasn't really what happened. What happened was Dubai says we don't want illegal immigrants in our country anymore. They gave them till March 1st. And by August 17, they said, okay, if you're still there because of Corona, let's know who you are. And some reported to the mission, they wrote their names and gave them free flights, but some still didn't want to come. And they started stepping in front of the nation, running from here to there. That is bad behavior. So we have to separate it. If you do something wrong, we'll say you did something wrong. That is bad behavior. But if there's injustice, NIDCOM will be there to ensure that we demand justice and get results, as we're going to do in the case of Ibrahim and a few others that we're dealing with on our table.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let's bring in Mohammed Bello. Mohammed Bello, who is of course the brother of Khalid Bello, who unfortunately lost his life in Northern Cyprus. I know how that has been for your family, but let us share with you perhaps some of the moves made by your family to ascertain what happened to Ibrahim, your brother. Was there any form of communication with your brother before his death as to know whether he had issues with some persons or perhaps friends or something? Was there anything you know about that?
Yes, in fact, he communicated less than 24 hours, I think. Spoke to my mother over the phone. But he was scared for his life, that he wasn't even particularly forthgoing with the information. He was hiding a lot of things. He didn't want to say what was wrong, but he feared for his life. My mother kept insisting, because at the time she was about to enter a meeting and she was at a conference over in the United States. So it was a call that was brief. She had to go. She was even thinking about flying over to the country right back when she comes back to Nigeria, because he sounded worried. Less than 24 hours, that was Friday morning. They had the conversation with him, and he said he was worried, but he didn't disclose what the problem was. And he spoke with my sister a few days back and told her that he was worried about his life too. And myself, he sent me a text message saying that he realized that everything in this country is a scam and that this country wasn't for him, something to that effect over WhatsApp. So we weren't very, our minds weren't restful. But the thing is, with the visa, with the transit visa and the issues with traveling to Cyprus, we cannot just travel immediately. So we had to wait for my mother to come back before we go and see him what the problem was. But before my mother came back on Saturday, I received the call from a friend, not even from the university. And they told me that one of his friends told me that unfortunately Khalil has died. You can imagine the devastation and the shock. We spoke less than 24 hours and he was just said that he was dead. And from there, that is how the story unfolded.
Any further information from his friend, who made that call to you, who broke the news to you? Did he give you any details of what led to his death?
What happened? And he said that the police alleged that he fell from a 7-story building and committed suicide, allegedly. So that was the story he told me when I was like, what happened? So I had to break it down to my family, because it was on a Saturday afternoon, and that was what he said he knew. That was what he read in the newspapers on Saturday, when the incident happened in the wee hours of the morning that same Saturday. So I don't know how they got that in the newspapers. I don't know how they got that report in the police investigation, but it was quick to spread, because he called me in the afternoon, early afternoon after 12, and told me that. And he said that was the information he read. He didn't know anything else. And he hasn't met Khalil in a while too. So I called my mother to tell her, and from there the things unfolded. She came back. It was after she came back that I called her to tell her, and called my father to tell him. And from there, a lot of things happened.
All right, Mohammed Bello, once again, you have our sympathies on what happened. Well, the Nigerians are indeed all traumatized by the occurrence. I just wanted to ask you, for how long was Ibrahim in northern Cyprus? And before those distress calls and messages indicating that he felt that his life was under threat, did he previously communicate with you or any other member of the family talking about his condition of living, or indeed the conditions around northern Cyprus?
Well, he didn't particularly talk about the conditions surrounding northern Cyprus. And we were in communication with him, and everything was going smoothly. From the conversations we had, we still have text messages. Before those, that week that was prior to the incident, all of us were in communication with him. We spoke. I speak with him personally via text message, through WhatsApp, via Instagram, social media channels, different social media platforms. And my siblings talk to him on a constant basis. My mother and father talk to him via text messages. He never laid a complaint about anything regarding difficulties pertaining his own personal life. But of course, we might not be aware of what he might have been facing in terms of challenges at the time. But he didn't communicate that to us at the beginning of the stay, or at the beginning of while he was there for about 3 years. He has been there for about 3 years before, a little more than 3 years before the incident.
Mohammed Bello, thank you very much. We're going to have to pause here and return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in now Nazif Bena. Nazif Bena is with us via Zoom from California. We introduced him a while ago. He is now a project management professional, and he, of course, studied from what we know in Cyprus or in northern Cyprus. Nazif Bena, let's bring you into the conversation now. Tell us, what was your experience studying in that part of the world?
Sure. Thanks for having me. And first of all, my thoughts and prayers to all the families that have lost loved ones, especially the Bellows. From here, my condolences to everyone. So, talking a little bit about my experience in Northern Cyprus, I can probably say I was one of the first few Nigerians to study there. This was decades ago. In '93, I went there, and honestly, it was an amazing experience. People were very friendly and appalled, shocked to hear all the horror stories that I'm hearing today. And really, one of the great things about the people of Cyprus was when I was there, they were really open and receptive to knowing us. It was me and my brother that went there, knowing us, why we came there, why we're there, don't we have universities in our countries? And, they were really curious to know about us, our culture, and they were willing to learn from us because they felt like our English was much better than theirs. And we were actually raising the bar, for lack of a better word, in the university. So we became magnets for them. And overall, amazing experience. I really don't know what more I can add. I know there are challenges. The Honorable Abikir talked a little bit about some of the challenges from the political angle. Of course, that has been there since 1974 after they had the war between the two sides, the Turks and the Greeks, and then the United Nations came in and demarcated the country. United Nations is still there. So that is a problem that still exists, and I'm not an expert in that field, but I'll leave it for United Nations to solve. They've been trying to solve that for a while, so I'll leave that at that. So why am I here today? I've talked a little bit about my experience. Why am I on this call at midnight at my time in Los Angeles when I should be sleeping or doing something else? So if I may, I take a few minutes. When I heard all these horror stories, I was in Cyprus last year. After being away since '97, I went back to visit. I took my family there for a 3-day visit so that they could see the island. And unfortunately, I did not hear any of the horror stories that I started hearing after I got back. I wish I had heard the stories then. I would have talked a little bit more with my local contacts to see maybe we can start doing some grassroots activities, but that never happened. So I'm here today because when I heard the stories, I reached out to NICOM, and thank you, Honorable. She called me back. We had a lengthy conversation, which shows her leadership. So I really appreciate. She spent about 20 minutes talking to me over an email that I sent to NICOM. I'm here because I really want to join the stakeholders that are here today, join any efforts with my local contacts that are available within the island to see how can we get to the root cause of these problems. How do we really figure out what is going on? If we can save one more life, Quran says, if you've saved one life, it's as if you've saved the whole of humanity. So I'm here to see what we can do as a group collectively. Let's create a stakeholder group and figure out what to do and how we can prevent such occurrences from happening in the future. I'm not here to blame anybody. What has happened, unfortunately. But again, I've talked to you about my experience. And so it was a wonderful experience, and I'm really sad and shocked to hear what's going on. So looking forward to hearing more from the rest of the panel. And I yield back if you have any other questions for me.
All right. Thank you you very much, Nazif Kirian.
Yes.
That's a very interesting perspective that Nazif just
exactly,
introduced.
because he just said that he took his family there last year. That he's surprised about the stories coming up from Cyprus. I had wanted to, ask him as well to let us know whether, the behavioral pattern of people from that country. What I would have asked him was to let us know if there is any kind of attitude towards foreign students,
and it was warm at the time. So what has changed?
20 years ago.
Yes. I'm still here.
All right.
Okay, you are still there. Okay, fine, good. You see, we want to know the normal behavior of an ordinary person from Cyprus towards foreigners, especially blacks. This is very important because some may be racist, we may never know. But when it comes to having affairs or relating with you socially or otherwise, one could be, could not be friendly. Because the young man that died in Cyprus has been expressing, fears. He was, he's been calling and making, some comments about his life being threatened, shortly before he died. And what we got from the security agents was that he committed suicide, he fell from a 7-story building. And that is the same story we had in the Dubai, in the Dubai saga as well, where we lost a student in Dubai.
Honestly, when I was there, the whole notion of race, I must say, the university we were at, and even when we traveled around the island, and last year when I was there, I asked around. I met some Nigerian students at the university that I went to, and I kind of asked them how they're doing, what they're feeling. Yes, they did mention, some hostility towards them. And at the same time, I heard the negative news about Nigerians there participating in different activities, 419, a robbery, But again, those are just things I heard from people, and I also heard some good stories. When I was there, I heard that Nigerians have restaurants, Nigerians have a bakery, and that the Nigerian community was getting stronger. I actually even went to one of the Nigerian restaurants to eat there, so that was a welcome development. Just for context, when I was there between '93 and '97. There were just a few Nigerians, probably less than 10 Nigerians, and Africans in total, probably less than 50. So just to even sit at a Nigerian restaurant was a big shocker for me.
Okay, Nazif, Ben, we're going to come back to you to give us some insight into the latest experience that you are narrating to us and to our viewers. Kirian, I'm sure we will have to seek clarification. Is it talking about Cyprus, or is talking about Northern Cyprus, which is under the control of Turkey, mostly in international relations? We're going to get back to him via Zoom once we get to bring in our other guests here with us in the studios. Dr. Mutar Imam of the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy at Bayes University here in Abuja, one of our regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria. Dr. Imam, of course, the takeoff point for today's conversation is the unfortunate incident that happened to Ibrahim Bello, who passed on, allegedly, by the authorities saying that it was suicide in Northern Cyprus. But we do know of other instances of Nigerian students who do not have quite a pleasant experience to the extent that Honorable Abike Dabiri has also touched on. Exactly what are we dealing with here, either in terms of concept or just in terms of our national or individual or family experiences?
Well, thank you very much. First off, I want to start by condoling with the family that have lost this young man. It's a very sad situation. It's something no family should have to go through. I feel the pain particularly of the brother who has been able to pull himself together and be on this show this morning. I know firsthand what it feels like to lose a brother, abruptly, just to hear all of a sudden that your brother is dead. It's really touching, But beyond that, there have been incidences of Nigerian students, Nigerian nationals, African nationals all over the world facing various kinds of hostilities that in most cases even lead to the loss of lives, which is something we shouldn't be seeing. You know, it contravenes everything that humanity stands for, first and foremost. It contravenes everything that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights stands for. It contravenes everything that every convention, as a matter of fact, from the Vienna to every other convention you can think about, stands for. You know, students, workers, professionals in different parts of the country or different parts of the world should have some basic fundamental protection, and the topmost of them should be of human rights. The sanctity of human life is something that should always be preserved. You know, these are cases that we've heard about. I, for example, teach in a private university where I have seen and heard firsthand from students who are on transfer from other schools abroad back here, from Nile University to Bayes University, who sit with me, talk about personal issues. I have this support group thing going on with my students. I take them very seriously because I have family members, close and far, who have been through all kinds of things, you know. So we have this kind of conversations, and they talk about issues they go through, you know. Basically, the takeaway from the conversations I've had oftentimes with the students is that the critical issues around what drives, the driving force behind all of these hostilities and negativity revolves around certain twin issues, if you like. First and foremost is the heightened increase, you know, of racism, of classism, of ethnicism going on all around the world. You know, blacks, basically Africans, face this sort of hostility all over, from Malaysia to Dubai, even in China. I've sat with students who talk to me about these things firsthand. I have family members who talk about what their kind of experiences abroad. You know, so these are some of the basic things that happen around. There is no denying the fact that racism plays a very significant role in all of these issues we're talking about here. You know, even people who are African Americans, for example, the sort of things they go through in the United States, let alone people who leave this climb and go to these other parts of the world and try to either study or make a living for themselves. So, and then you have the problem of classism as well, you know, and then you have a problem of ethnicism on the basis of cultural differences, on the basis of the color of a person's skin, judging people on that, you know, rather than on their intellectual standing and all of that. So these are fundamental issues that basically drive this sort of things. Again, of course, like you mentioned, these problems are multi-layered and they are multifaceted. It is at family level, it is at institutional level, it is at governmental level. The government needs to do a lot more by finding out what exactly goes on, like the Honorable talked about earlier. This is a country we don't even have a mission, you know, in. This is a country we don't have any kind of diplomatic relation with. And ideally, it would have been expected that where you have a diplomatic relation with a country, your mission there would have a database for people of your national, students, professionals, market people, whatever that they are. There should be that very, you know, solid database that gives an information as to what happens to these individuals. And then, of course, it is very important that students who go abroad to study also try to gravitate amongst themselves, so that on that basis they can have some kind of platform where they can share experiences, talk about issues surrounding problems that they go through and things like that. These are all very important aspects of government-to-government relations that needs to play out, whether we have missions in this country or not. And then again, at the level of the family, families need to do a lot. I mean, these are institutions where you're not paying 10,000 naira. They range between 7,000 pounds to 10,000 pounds. You have a child going to an institution of that. I mean, if I'm spending 100 grand on my child, I want to know everything that goes on there. I will go to the classroom and sit there. Perhaps I'm speaking as a teacher who earns small, but then I still believe this is what I will do. You need to investigate virtually everything that goes on. It's not just about schooling abroad. It's also with institutions around here. I see these things happening. Kids talk about how their parents are nonchalant about the things they go through, like the type of academic, surgeon they basically have embarked upon in schools and things like that. So I think at that very important level of the unit of family, that's most important and essential structure or organ or institution of society. There needs to be this very robust conversation around what exactly your child is going through, what he's doing and where he is. Why is there the need first and foremost for you to take him to these climes? These are some of the basic issues that I feel needs our attention. And then again, of course, ultimately, what are the reasons why these kids are going out there to study? We have institutions here. You heard what the guy from the US talked about. People in Cyprus or Northern Cyprus want to know exactly why they come there to study. Don't they have schools in their country? What have happened to our institutions? Why are students going out there? And it's not just about our students. There was a statistic the last time that we have an exodus of almost 6,000 doctors from this country. The United Nations brought a statistic that shows that we have 1 doctor to 1,000 patients in this country. Yet a chunk of the doctors in OECD countries are from this part of the world. It costs the country 40 to 60,000 pounds to train 1 medical doctor. Yet these guys are leaving. So these are very critical questions we need to ask.
Yes, well spoken. There's this craze, for not just going abroad to study, but for anything foreign in this country. We've seen that over the years. And of course, it's playing out at the level of academic pursuit in this country for a while now. Now, let's bring in Abdul Malid Mohammed, who's a legal practitioner. Now, let us bring in the legal perspective to this conversation. Yes. What should be the best approach by the Nigerian authorities in pursuit of the right of a Nigerian student who suddenly loses his life anywhere across the globe? Should there be a legal procedure that should be followed to seek for justice for these individuals?
Yes, well, actually, it's rather unfortunate. I will first of all condole the families of Ibrahim Khalil over the death once more. Now, just the chair of the Diaspora Commission has said, when we don't have bilateral relations with the country, with the Cyprus, Northern Cyprus, and in addition, we don't have, the country, the federal government, as a body, need to take steps. Now, how will that be done? Within the context of the country, that we don't have bilateral relations. We don't have protocols or bilateral agreements that we enter for the enforcement, of rights of individuals, of, Nigerians that reside there. Now, in such a situation, just like the unfortunate, murder of Ibrahim Khalil, is just like the chair has said, it's an eye-opener. Perhaps many have died. Nobody, seems to talk, over these events. Now, this has happened, and now the federal government is really serious about it. Now, the only option available actually is to refer this matter to Interpol. Now, the Honorable Attorney General has looked at the petition. I was privileged to read through all the petition. I was privileged when the mother of Khalil presented her petition, to the Diaspora Commission. She has highlighted many things in the petition. Now, the death of Khalil is over 7 months now. No reports from Northern Cyprus, no police reports, no anything was issued, no condolence for the family of Ibrahim Khalil, no condolence to the federal government, nothing. So in such situation, it's only Interpol, which we have Interpol in Nigeria. They are the one to put synergy, with the police in Cyprus to ensure that investigation is done and prosecution is conducted. But when you look at the span of time between the death of Ibrahim Khalil till now, what are they doing presently? How do we do? The Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, under the law, cannot go with their officers to make investigation. The Inspector General of Police cannot leave the country and begin to conduct investigation in another country that we don't even have a relation. We don't have bilateral relations. So these are the difficulties. And that was why we are saying that parents and all those that are concerned should make sure that before they send their children to Northern Cyprus, they should ask those critical questions, and they should ensure that actually whatever they needed to be done, they have to be careful, because the report has been there that we have over 8,000 Nigerian students in Northern Cyprus. Now, how do we protect, their welfare? How do we protect their life? The life of, like my colleague has said, is sacrosanct. The life of an individual. Now, assuming that it's an American that lost life in that country, what would have happened? Now, these are some of the legal challenges that the country is now facing. You can only go to Turkey and complain. You cannot go to Northern Cyprus and say, this is the situation, what are the legal steps? Now, for a span of time now that nothing has happened, it raises a lot of concern. It raises a lot of issues. So these are some of the difficulties, and these are some of the legal challenges, the country is facing.
All right, thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Abdul Hamid Mohammed, for the legal perspective you have brought in. Earlier, we introduced Fidelis Soriwe. He's a human rights activist. He's still with us via Zoom, I believe. Okay, all right. So we still have him via Zoom. Still on the legal remedies, or if you like now, the rights remedies available, either to the family of a victim who's passed on, or to a victim who suffered some grievous injury and still alive. What exactly do we know? How successfully have Nigerians tried to pursue their rights against the host countries or even the host institutions? All right. Well, did you hear my question? Okay, I'm just saying, Fidelis, I'm saying that following up on the legal perspective introduced by Abdul Hamid, how successfully have Nigerians tried to pursue remedies either in their host countries or from the host institutions where Nigerian students have suffered either some harm or in some other sad instances where they have died?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me start by condoling with the family of Ibrahim Bello, who is the latest victim of the lawlessness in Northern Cyprus. Let me also commend the Nigerian Television Authority and Honorable Abike Dabiri Irewa for the sustained effort they have made to enlighten Nigerians on the dangers of sending children to their death in North Cyprus. When I say their death, I know, and I will come to give you the details, because the Soriwe family is a victim of this same issue that is affecting the Bello family in 2013. And when we were crying, if this country had listened to us, perhaps we would have saved the life of Bello Khalil. He wouldn't have died. In 2013, I will tell this story so that when parents who are watching this program listen to my story and I bring out the implications of that story, it will perhaps be useful to them to take a decision when they want to send their children to that so-called island of that people have described as a paradise. In 2013, my nephew, my elder brother's first son, Gabriel Soriwe, who was aged 20, was sent to Northern Cyprus to study electrical electronics engineering. He went to that country in February, and by September, they told us he was hit by a Turkish woman. My elder brother went to Northern Cyprus, Nicosia, to meet with them, to find out what actually happened, and they told us it was an accident. Do you know that till today, as we are talking, the police authorities in that so-called country, I call it a banana republic, because in Nigeria, if you kill somebody's child, there is no way the grieving family will not know the victim of the identity of the killer. The worst you will do is to protect the family, take them to charge the suspect to court. If it's a case of manslaughter, or if it's a case of murder, it's a case of culpable homicide, you take that person to the court of law. That is where you have a system of justice in operation. In Northern Cyprus, there is no system of justice in operation that protects the Nigerian child. He goes to that country with suspended freedom, with suspended liberty, including the right to life. My brother's son was killed supposedly by a drunken Turkish woman. That is the story of the police. 2 days after the death of this boy, the police connived with some Turkish people or some Northern Cypriot citizens, and they withdrew money from his account. Till today, we don't know how that happened, even when the child had become a victim, even when the child had died. And that thing I will say is this: we came to this in the country. We wrote letters to the president. President Goodluck Jonathan was president then. We wrote to his office. We wrote to the Senate. We wrote to the House of Reps. We wrote to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We wrote to the Turkish embassy. We wrote to the embassy of Cyprus. That is south of Cyprus, southern Cyprus. Do you know that it was only the House of Reps Committee on the Diaspora, because the committee happened to have a woman of honor who was carrying out her responsibility with an interplay of passion and compassion. The only person that stood up for this family to help us cry out was Honorable Abike Dabiri-Rewa. Today, the same history is being repeated. One death will be enough for this country to rise up. If you kill a Nigerian child under a questionable circumstances, others who have not been victims will stand up. That is the best way to prevent more people from being killed, more unnecessary deaths. You see, in Northern Cyprus, the life of the Nigerian child, from what has happened to our family, is not different from that of a stray animal. It is painful to say that my late nephew was an equation of a stray animal in Northern Cyprus. It couldn't have happened to him in a country that is truly a country. Northern Cyprus, we sent him to that country out of ignorance. It is not beautiful to admit ignorance, but perhaps admitting ignorance will prevent more Nigerian children from being wasted. These people sent their agents to this country. They painted a picture of a non-existent paradise, a place of peace, a place where education booms, a place where they have some of the best educational universities in this world, and all that. And they come with their videos. And unsuspecting parents will look at those videos without investigation. They send their children into untimely death. And I will not be surprised if after this painful repetition represented by the death of this young man, more still die, because it has become a pattern in this country. Perhaps the exception would be that now we have a diaspora commission headed by a woman that has a passion as a mother to stop further deaths in this country. No government agent, the Foreign Affairs Ministry we wrote to, it caught the image of an impotent organization. They were angry as Nigerians, but they were powerless. They couldn't do anything. The official that was dealing with me said, this country does not have any diplomatic relationship with Nigeria. No bilateral relations. The country is recognized only by Turkey. It's a Turkey-occupied territory. It is not recognized by the EU, but when these people come, they tell you Northern Cyprus is part of, or they will tell you Cyprus. They won't tell you Northern Cyprus, because Cyprus is part of EU, Northern Cyprus is not. So they are hiding under the good image of Cyprus to sell Northern Cyprus to ignorant Nigerians. And it comes with devastating consequences. When you lose a child, you have trained, you have been able to raise to the age of a young man of 20, and you wake up one morning and they tell you the child is dead. You know the pain.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to return to you in the course of the conversation so that you can tell us more about the remedial approach, which of course Cecily wanted to know from you initially when we put that question to you. Now we're returning to California where we have Nassif Ben. Nassif Ben, shortly before we pause to you, you were telling us a story of your experience when you returned to Cyprus on a holiday. But we want to know whether I'm talking about Northern Cyprus or Cyprus itself, because that will enable us to understand where your story is coming from. Would you just go back to what you were telling us then concerning information you had about Nigerians, their behavior, and some Nigerians who are making waves in Northern Cyprus in terms of businesses, in terms of other economic activities?
Absolutely. And Fidelis, just I want to go back to Fidelis. Sorry to hear about your loss, and my heart goes out to you and your family. So back to the question from the moderator. I was talking about my experience when I went back last year, and I was really impressed to hear the good and the ugly. I was impressed to hear the good and obviously appalled to hear the ugly. And the good was, I was sitting with a couple of Cypriots that we went to school together. Some were my lecturers that have kind of grown into the system now. And, the good I heard was, Nigerians are very enterprising. They've set up a bakery. You can buy agege bread now in Cyprus, and even the locals are enjoying it. And there are a couple of restaurants around the island that are Nigerian owned, and you can eat Nigerian food. So I felt that was a good way, as they say, food unites us, right? That's a good way. That was a good way for us to start really showcasing the good side of Nigerian culture. Because a lot of the people that were there were telling me, they've tasted jollof rice, they've tasted pounded yam. These are people that have never heard of any African food, I'm sure, before Nigerians got there. So I felt like Nigerians were being good ambassadors and also being bad ambassadors at the same time. And the bad ambassadors were, somebody said the first robbery case they heard of was committed by some Nigerians, allegedly, obviously. I don't have the details. I cannot substantiate any facts. And the fraud cases, they talked about a lot of fraud going on. Again, these are common things you hear if you live in diaspora about Nigerians. You hear the excellent things we're doing, you hear the horrible things we're doing. But I'm not going to dwell on the horrible things we're doing. I am all about the future. I am going to be leaving the meeting in about 3 minutes, so I just want to wrap up. It's almost 12:30 my time. Again, I'm about the future. I really want to join hands with stakeholders. I'll keep working with the Honorable, with the NITCOM Commission to really see what we can do together. We don't have to really wait for the process of diplomacy or whatever it is. There are always ways we can get things done through contacts, and I would like to explore that to see, again, as I said earlier, if we can save one more life. That is a huge milestone, right? So that's why I'm here, and I'm sure when we start talking to the Cypriots and really presenting numbers to them. So I was just doing some research, and I found out that on average, Nigerian students spend approximately about $20,000 a year. So just multiply that by the number of students we have and the visitors that come from Nigeria to visit those students. Imagine the economic impact that we are contributing to the island. So I feel like there are lots of avenues where we can sit down and have conversations in terms of really stopping this madness. I call it madness because based on my experience, that was a non-happening event when I was there. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me to talk about my perspective. I hope I've given you a little bit of a different context or different color about this. And unfortunately, this is a sad event, and really looking forward to partnering with all the stakeholders that we can come up with and finding a viable solution so that this does not happen again. This needs to stop. Thank you very much.
All right, Nazif Bena, we appreciate your being with us via Zoom. We recognize, as we said earlier, that these are small hours in California, where you joined us via Zoom. Some of that occasion, we have the opportunity of drilling more into matters arising from this conversation. Once again, Nazif Bena, our appreciation to you for being with us on the conversation this morning. Let's come back now to our Abuja studios and bring in Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa. There are a number of issues on the table. I see you've also been taking notes. But look, I want to try and make a connection. Dr. Mukhtar Imam says that part of the explanation for the hostility towards Nigerians can be explained by the rise in racism, ethnicity, and class consciousness around the world, and more particularly in some of these places where Nigerians assume are ordinarily havens. But take that back home. You said earlier that at some point when you were in the House of Reps, good job that you did, there's some marketing going on for some foreign institution in one of the hotels here in Abuja, as they always do. They choose Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt for their marketing. The marketing goes on and on. And usually if you are marketing, the thing is to say, look, come and buy. And the rule, as Abdul Mohammed is here, is buyer beware, which is caveat emptor. Why is it that in some cases that Nigerians almost seem so, you know, I wouldn't say what I'm about to say now. Nigerians do not appear to even carry out due diligence about these institutions. It's like you look at a glossy brochure and they tell you, like Fidelis was saying just now, oh, the Northern Cyprus is paradise. And then when you get there, you find that it's probably not the place where you are supposed to be. What can we do about this in the first instance so that perhaps we can begin to tackle the supply side of getting our students out there into environments where they are not supposed to be? Because Mukhtar himself also tells us about the interactions that he has had with those who have come back from otherwise horrific experiences when they went to abroad, so-called.
Yeah, thank you very much. But before I answer your question, there's a point I should make. When they said Ibrahim died of suicide, by the time they saw the body, he was intact. I mean, they said he jumped from a 7-story building. His body was intact. His hair was in place. There was just a little hole here where blood was gushing. And that's always been the story. From all the stories we've heard, it's always, oh, he killed himself, he committed suicide. But somebody who committed suicide didn't have...
No fractures?
No fractures. And then they realized that his body had been opened up. And not in the way you do an autopsy. You know, it's like cutting the body open and then stitching it back. So we don't even know whether they removed his organs. Yeah. So this thing is deeper than, you know, we're saying. And that's why when I come up and say, don't do this, some people tell me that you're not diplomatic. I say, what is diplomacy? I'm not a diplomat. I'm there to speak the truth on behalf of Nigerians. And you see, this should not go away.
That's right.
So I think I had to bring that in. And then, like Soriwe said, and then don't forget that Khalil died in October. We only got to know 2 weeks ago because the poor mother had just been, you know, trying to see whether she could get anything done, talking to them, but then nothing happened. So let's get that clear. And even Soriwe's case, till tomorrow, they don't know the person that allegedly. And that's the story all through. You know, they're about the students' union guy that was defending them. He wrote an article that don't mind me. He's saying, no, they're only 18. Have you asked questions about those 18? And let me tell you the danger again. Since we came that time and said, get out of here, they are now using Nigerians to recruit without telling them the truth behind this whole thing. And then, like I said, it's very attractive, beautiful pictures, you know. And not only, you see, Northern Cyprus peculiar because we don't have a relationship with them, but there are many universities. Now, what NIDCOM is doing now is we're talking to JAMB, NUC, to list these universities. I'm telling you that there are universities our children are going to, even in the West Africa, because you just say you went abroad. You can't do your youth service. Because even Khalil, by his second year, they discovered that his course was not accredited. So he had to change and find something else to do. So what's the way forward? Let's admit we have a problem with the educational system. If things were the way they should be, our children will not be going to these countries that are even substandard. Like a doctor said, how much are they paying over there? So much money. And the same thing, our brother from America, so much money. And if you spend that money in a private university, you need to pay that much. Even in Ghana, they will not tell you to come and pay insurance, pay something that you have to, some identification every year. And you know what, if you even want a medical, to do your medicals, you can't as a student in Ghana because they will never give you health insurance. So if you have malaria, they drive to Lagos to come and treat themselves. So what NIDCOM will do, you know, we're just a year old, and we're going to look into this. We're going to work with the agencies involved, the NUC in particular. We had planned with the JAMB to go to some of these countries, and you know, in some other countries, in fact, they end up even in Benin Republic, you find that it's actually fake schools. What they promise on paper is not what you get. So the death, we pray never happens again. In the case of Northern Cyprus, we're not letting go. We're going to follow up with the ambassador in Turkey, the Turkish ambassador here. He has told us he's going to look into it. We've written all the names that we know and the many that we do not know. So trust us, we're not letting go. So that, like they said, if you're only going to save one more life, if it's going to be Ibrahim Khalil that will put a stop to that, will put a stop to that. In other countries, even in Ghana, when a Nigerian was killed, we investigated to the very end, and it turned out that out of the 4 people involved, 3 Nigerians were involved. And another thing he said, even in Khalil's case, money was withdrawn from his account. An account is paying to the school. They discovered that money left that account. How does the school fees you pay get out of the account? So it's a bit complicated, and we should not gloss over it, diplomacy or no diplomacy. So yes, there are things we need to fix our country. There's no doubt about that. We can't keep having our best go out, you know. But at the same time, you can't stop migration, legal or illegal. If a doctor wants to practice abroad, you can't stop him. But what do? You see, now we say it's not about brain gain or brain drain, but how do you call it? Brain circulation. You know? So you have to make the best out of every situation. So yes, you fix your country, and then awareness. If with what we're doing, like our professor said, try and know where your children are going to. When we were around neighboring countries, I called a parent that I knew. I saw the daughter. I said, and this is a high, you know, not an illiterate. I said, have you seen the university your son is attending? He said, no, it's what they saw on internet. I said, if I were you, I would drop my child here. And he did. And he did. So really, parents, be more aware. As a nation, yes, we need to fix our system, and I believe this administration is doing that. You can see that things are happening in the education system. So it's going to take a while, but it's going to happen. They warn parents that there are some universities you say you're going to abroad. They are worse than staying here. Even if it's a private university, if you have that kind of money, there are private universities here. About 3 private universities are now in the top 1,000, and we're improving gradually. Effect of years ago that I went is not of today, but it's getting better. So gradually we're getting there. Let's have faith in ourselves and others. So that's, and then stop these further killings. For us at NIDCOM, we'll be demanding justice. Fine, as our barrister said, we don't have diplomatic relations, but we'll put the pressure on Turkey. And then we'll be working with Neville. You know, some Cypriots might not even know what is happening. Some try to jump. You see, another thing that happens, some try to jump. You know, you can jump from northern to southern. So even in the process of doing that, they die. When they realize that, oh, this is not the country that we thought, there are some limitations. So we keep working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is in front of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then our ambassador in Ankara, Turkey, is also on the matter. So we're not going to let it go, and we'll promise that wherever any Nigerian is treated badly, NIDCOM will always intervene. However, as we have also heard, we have the good and the bad. You know, we have Nigerians committing crime. If you commit a crime, you go to jail. There's nothing we can do about that, but that should not define us. If one Nigerian commits a crime, 10,000 are doing great things. And we will continue to spread the message of the 10,000, the many doing great things, because bad news travels fast. But we at NIDCOM will not stop in ensuring justice for every Nigerian, while we're also encouraging Nigerians to behave yourselves, whatever country you are in. Thank you.
All right. The head of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, we appreciate your explanation. And when we return from this break, we would also like you to go further to let us know whether there is any communication channel that could be established between your organization and the Nigerian students abroad. Because for all we have said here this morning, we've not really nailed any kind of collaboration between the Nigerian embassies abroad and certain schools where Nigerian students find themselves. It's also to know whether they have any track record of Nigerian studying or data of Nigerians studying in the countries where they live in, which is very paramount. At this point, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. Don't go away.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring great personalities from all walks of life. Expository interview with a young TV presenter who shows passion on what she does, Morayo Afolabi Brown of TVC. Pick a copy of this compendium of mind-blowing stories and get abreast with issues as regards media convergence, leadership, health, star profiles, star programs, fashion, sports, human angle stories, and lots more. Meet some media professionals within our space who have paid their dues in no small ways. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
All right, we're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Well, let's go back to Honorable Abike Dabere Erewa, and I would like to get from her whether there is a possibility of establishing a communication channel between Nigerian students abroad in any part of the world and, of course, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission here in Nigeria. We also know that Nigeria has missions abroad. I want to understand, though, from her whether there is any form of collaboration between her office and those missions abroad, and to what extent, have the missions, been able to also have a data or have contact with Nigerian students who are studying in the countries where they are representing Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much. A major problem is that there's no accurate data of Nigerians in the diaspora, which we're beginning to create. So we're going to have a special portal where students and even Nigerians generally will be registered. We'll launch that very soon. But what I want to tell Nigerians is that we have missions everywhere in the world. Now you're going to hear, oh, they don't care about us, they don't say anything. But what I tell them is, particularly students, when you are studying in any country, at least register at the mission. If they don't answer is another thing, but go there. Like in Malaysia, when a student died, it turned out that he was actually a legal resident. They were running after him, thought he was an illegal resident. He was a legal resident, and they killed him. And he had all his documentation. But the mission didn't even have his records. Even during this COVID-19, it turned out that you thought you were 100, but you were like 5,000 and you want to come back. How do you plan? So first thing is, yes, you might complain about the missions, but I know that things are getting better. and we're moving to the era of technology, report at the missions. NITCOM will have a portal, which we're going to introduce very soon, where you can easily register and then we know where you are. But please appeal to Nigerian, particularly students. When you're in any country, try and register there. Northern Cyprus is a different case because we don't have any relationship there. But at least the embassy in Turkey can know that you are there. So let's more awareness and about the fact that have more faith in the system. And we deal also with various students associations. We have various students associations abroad, and we're already engaging with them. And when there are issues, they're actually the first to tell us. Like in South Africa, the head of the Students' Union would tell us this is happening, and then we get involved. But in Northern Cyprus, in countries where they actually collaborate with them, like even the president of the Student Union in Northern Cyprus, you know, they get benefits. So rather than report, you rather collude with that country. So we keep working at that, but definitely the missions are there. We work with the missions. We're creating a portal for online registration and a lot of things coming up. And I think it's about communication, which is very key. But I have faith in the missions. Register your presence. Let them know they are there. Then we're going to have a diaspora desk in every mission. Staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that will be at those desks. So we'll be working at that. It's going to be a continuous thing, constant thing. I will make it online and digital.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Abike. I just want to, Kieran, we have a number of tweets that have come in already. I think that we'll go through those tweets and then return to our guests to get their comments. Nigerians are contributing to this conversation. Leo Fadaka tweets, says, the phobia for Nigerian students' strong intellectual capabilities is the genesis of hostility abroad. They wonder how students from third world countries can excel so much, which then degenerates to jealousy and hostility. Our foreign missions must wake up.
Now, Fallow Square, he said, I am speaking as an ex-student of CIU, and I must say that a lot should be done to discourage Nigerians from traveling there. I think he meant Cyprus here, but he abbreviated it here. He said Nigerians from traveling there because it may interest you to note that the so-called Cyprus is a two-building block which can't be compared to any approved university by NUC in Nigeria.
Now, Mutana Farouk tweets, it's high time we learned to respect ourselves and pay allegiance to Nigeria first before we expect others to do the same to us. Nigerians are always the victims of foreign hostility. Does anyone care to find out the reasons? Let us love, live, buy, school, hospitalize, and eat Nigeria.
Nanjo Dugule says that Taraba State has one time lost her best graduate to that, a trained medical doctor who went to Egypt for his residency. I was expecting a strong diplomatic probe on Egypt, but nothing serious happened. Our government needs to step up in defending Nigerian students home and abroad.
Festus Akimboyewa, government at all levels must revamp our educational system and do more to protect Nigerians studying abroad.
Chris Simeon, charity begins at home. Parents and guardians must make sure their children schooling abroad exhibit good moral conduct. Going there and taking part in shady deals like illicit drugs would cause hostility. The attack Nigerian students are facing in Northern Cyprus is uncalled for, and federal government should dialogue with the government of Northern Cyprus to find a lasting solution to such unpleasant situation. He went on, but I have to stop here.
Well, yeah, Kira says Nigerian government should dialogue. You can't open up a dialogue with a country with whom you don't have diplomatic relations, and that's what Honorable Abike has been explaining, that the Nigerian government will have to go through Turkey.
Or perhaps through the Interpol, as
Interpol, yes, to examine that case and find out what actually happened. Law Alpha C, aside students studying abroad, Nigerians are enterprising, hardworking, ambitious, and smart, and these qualities often activate envy and attacks from some host countries.
Nandam Webb said the bullies enjoy the act only when they think that rescue wouldn't come for the vulnerable. Some of the people in these countries are taking advantage of us, treating us with disdain because they understand how we have divided ourselves along different lines in our homeland.
Cecilia Okoroma tweets, Nigerian parents send their children abroad even when they don't have the means. They must be told that it is tough out there. When you force your words and you don't have the means, you are making them engage in all sorts of criminal activities in order to survive.
All right, from Delejak Solomon, we need to make education so good in a way that foreign students will flock back to Nigerian institutions as it used to be. The Nigerian government needs to perfect its role as regulator and create an enabling environment for private and state operators who are better placed.
All right, Kieran, those are the twists we can take in the meantime. I was just wondering, it's an interesting conversation we're having. I'm sure our producers and others upstairs are listening. We have just only a couple of minutes left. It looks like potentially, Kieran, this is going to be a spillover conversation on some other occasion. Tomorrow is Friday, but we'll see how we can work out our schedule to discuss this in further detail. Mohammed Bello, if we still have him with us. Yeah, Mohammed Bello, that's the brother of Ibrahim Khalil. Mohammed Bello, of course, you've listened to the different perspectives articulated by our guests this morning. Are you satisfied with what you have heard from either the authorities or the perspectives further articulated, as I said a while ago, by our guests? Namely, are you sure you'll get justice? And if so, how soon?
Well, so far, the Honorable has been doing a lot to support our family. Honestly, I can't thank her enough. She has been all out on the issue, on the matter, 24/7/365. And she's doing her best. But we're talking about 19th October last year. We're still waiting for reports that are non-existent. We went to that country expecting to see the corpse of my brother in multiple packages. We came back with a body that was intact, no fractures. The police were doing their best over there to convince us that he committed suicide at that spot, for whatever ulterior motive. You can imagine sending your brother, your beloved brother, to somewhere to study, who was intelligent, smart, brilliant, lovable. You can imagine sending him to study over there, or accompanying him to study, and bringing him back in a suitcase. I mean, I cannot stress how much urgency we need to see that this case is brought to justice. But then again, the issue with the diplomacy of the country and these challenges that we're facing is not helping matters. And I understand it from the perspective of the Honorable and the federal government of Nigeria that there is no existent relationship between Nigeria and Northern Cyprus. So there's very little they can do. But it's painful. And the issues, the matters that we noticed even when we were there and while we were coming back, you know, I've forgotten to tell you that just about 7 months after the death, we weren't given his phone when we were there, and we spoke to him less than 24 hours. We weren't given his phone. We weren't given his clothing that he fell from the building from. We were promised CCTV footage and we weren't given the CCTV footage. We were promised pictures of, and there's CCTV footage on every corner in every street in that country. We weren't given the pictures of the crime scene and we were promised the pictures of the crime scene. There was a toxicology report because someone claimed that he was a drug addict. There was a toxicology report that was supposed to be due 6 weeks after the autopsy, which was carried the following day after his demise. This is how many months later? Still no toxicology report. So these guys were hiding a lot of things. They are intentionally hiding things for whatever ulterior motives that we can't tell. We had to resort to coming to the Honorable to lay our complaints. So I don't know how how long it's going to take, but these are matters. There's a lot. His phone we had him in a family group. They didn't give us his phone, and his phone number was deleted from the family group just recently. His Twitter handle was reported and suspended. So there had to be foul play involved. There had to be foul play involved, and that is why we are seeking justice. And we are not the only persons that this happened to. You've received the cries of my colleagues on this call. This is not a first thing. And by the way, one of the my colleague from base mentioned that teachers need to, if we're paying that much amount of money, we need to visit the country. We visited that country 3 times. In fact, the school didn't allow us to know what he was going through. We had to request personally for his result, and he had to give it to us. But the school weren't willing to give us his results and his documents and everything. We had to resort to other means to request for his results and everything. And so we knew everything that was going on. But the explanation still didn't make sense. His body was intact when we brought it. I was part of the 3 people, including my father and my uncle, that washed him before we buried him as per the ritual rites of the Muslims. So these are questions that need to be answered. And
thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Mohammed. That's a very terrible story that you have just told us here. And the time is no longer on our side. Otherwise, we would have actually delved into some of the issues that you raised. But then we can still ask the legal practitioner among us here to look at the perspective just in a few seconds, right? You know, all the things he mentioned. Yes. Let us know how such issues he raised could be utilized, assuming, you know, we're making further steps or taking further steps towards seeking justice.
Yes, what he mentioned actually are facts. These are pieces of evidence that needed to be investigated. A suspect arrested, and then prosecution subsequently. But then 7 months, you know, is a period whereby it's a no period, you know, for the Cyprus authority to say this is the findings on the basis of our own petition and on the basis of all these facts surrounding the circumstances of the murder of Khalil. Because if you want to prosecute, there must be evidence. And these are raw materials that can be used to prosecute. But no suspect is arrested, no police reports.
And that's why we're talking about the role of the Interpol in all of this.
Yes.
Try to get the evidence
the
together.
Interpol will know how to step in and see the possibilities. But if they are using Interpol, it's the Interpol of Cyprus authorities that will use. You know, like I said, the country is a sovereign country. You know, nobody can now jump into that country and begin to investigate and begin to make...
All right. Abdulhamid Mohammed, legal practitioner, we'd like to thank you for being part of our conversation this morning. We also would like to appreciate Dr. Muhtar Imam of the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy at Bayes University, Abuja. Fidelis Soriwe, human rights activist, former chief press secretary to the Bayelsa State Governor. We would like to thank you and also sympathize with you on the loss of your nephew, which occurred 7 years ago. Very touching story you gave us this morning. Mohammed Bello, brother to Ibrahim Khalil, who of course died in October last year, and has been the trigger for our conversation this morning. We also would like to thank Honorable Abike Dabiri Arewa, Chairman, CEO of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. Thank you for being with us. We may have to tap you again to be part of the conversation. There are many other aspects to discuss. We're talking about what happened now. We do know that some Nigerians who are on scholarships also often get stranded because their scholarships monies are not paid in good time. Plus what NUC needs to do and the Federal Ministry of Education in terms of accreditation. So that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. Back tomorrow same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Sadolo.
And I am Kieran Umayo. Thank you for watching. See you again tomorrow.